just watching them grow and develop as father and daughters, I felt like that time was so precious, and none of us knew. None of us knew that the very next year he would be gone. Mum sees me, and Mum hears me, and Mum's gonna try her best to facilitate a space so that I can just be. And if I'm angry, or if I'm upset, or if I'm mad, or I'm crying or sad, that I'm allowed to be that.
Kia ora, talofa lava, malola lei, and welcome to Parents We've Met. I'm so glad that you've found us and you've come to hang out for a little while. I was driving here today, Jenny, and I was thinking how it's such a privilege what we get to do on this podcast, to sit with parents and to talk about the highs and the lows and the mess and magic of parenting. And I always feel so honoured when people say yes to coming and talking with us. And today I feel really honoured to have a special guest in the studio, Vasa Fia Collins. Thank you for saying yes and being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's so lovely. Now, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but when we were getting ready for season 3, your name was the first name I wrote down of someone I'd love to talk to, because myself, like many people from around New Zealand, have been watching you, and I've seen you interviewed, and I just thought you have got such courage, such strength, such grace, the way that you've been carrying yourself and navigating this new season after losing your powerhouse of a husband. He was a man for the people, Efeso Collins, and also just all the hats you wear as a mum of 2 girls, as a professional, as a mentor, and someone who is just an amazing person for the community, and just giving so much. So just in awe of you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I'll add into that. It is really special to have you here today, Fia. And I'm just interested in how are you feeling as you sit here with us today, and especially as you look towards the parenting journey that you're involved in.
O talofa lava, malo se fo mau malangi ma. It's a real honour and a real privilege to be here. I'm excited, and I'm also really nervous. But yeah, I feel really good about being here. And like I said, it's a real privilege to share this space with you both. And in my journey as well as a parent, it's been a tough one. I've had lots of highs and lows, but I'm keen to get into the talanoa and to share a little bit more about my story, of myself, my family, my late husband, and of course my treasures, my daughters.
This podcast is called Parents We've Met. We'd love to hear a little bit about your girls, age and stage, and are they similar? Are they different?
Oh, my daughters are like chalk and cheese. So my eldest is now 13. I'm still in denial that she's a teenager. But her name is Gabriela, and then my youngest is 5, and her name is Asalemo. And they're both so beautiful in their own way. And my eldest, Gabriela, is very wise. So she's mature beyond her years. She's always been that way, quite calm, quiet, and just sort of sits in that strength and resilience and observes. And then when she does say something, it's quite profound, and we're thinking, oh, okay, where did that come from? But yeah, she's always been very responsible and a great eldest. And then I've got my younger one who's bouncing off the walls, who bosses us all around, and she just loves life. And she wakes up in the morning, she's ready to tackle the day. And so I draw inspiration from both of them, and they give me great hope, and they give me what I need. And so it's ironic that I'm here talking about parenting and maybe what I'm doing for them, but the reality is they've probably done more for me. And so I feel really blessed that I have those girls in my life, and especially given, our situation around losing Efeso, it was devastating, and if I'm honest, I am still quite crushed about it. But when I wake up in the morning, I think with my eldest, she and I are similar. We've got lots of memories of Efeso that we cherish, that we love, and we feel a bit sad. So we wake up and we kind of wake up to this deep sadness. But my youngest, she wakes up happy. She walks in and she's like, yay, what are we doing today? And well, what are you guys sad for? Get up. And so both of them reflect a different side of their father, whereas one is reflective, wise and caring and kind. And the other one has so much energy and enthusiasm and a desire to get out and serve and change the world and explore and touch everything and destroy everything. So I feel like whilst they're chalk and cheese, I feel like God knew exactly what he was doing when he designed them for me and for our family. So yeah, they're both very different and special in their own way. But I feel like as a unit, it's exactly what everything I could have ever hoped for.
I love that. I was reflecting, because when Efeso was going for the Auckland Mayor and he didn't get it, it didn't make sense to me. And then looking at from that point, that year he became the main caregiver for the girls. And it was a year of school drop-offs and sports practice and all those just everyday moments, just the ordinary, that became actually now quite extraordinary to have had that time. I mean, looking back, what was that time for your family?
I mean, it was special. It was such a beautiful time because it was an opportunity for him to really flex in a space that I think people don't understand well about him.
Yeah.
And whilst he was excellent at whatever he was doing outside, you know, as a public figure, as a leader in the community, as a politician, whatever you want to call it, it was that magnified in our home. And he was, I believe, called to be a great, amazing dad. And during the campaign, you'll know that we were so busy, but when he came home, however exhausted he was present and he wanted to be with them. And I think in many respects, it was his way of filling his cup. And when I looked at my girls, it was filling theirs too. And so that time and that connection was so precious during a busy time that when after the mayoralty and after we had lost, it meant that that connection could grow even more. And it was beautiful to see him in his element. He enjoyed it so much. He loved picking them up. He loved dropping them off. He enjoyed going to, you know, their Siva Samoa LA dance. He would go to their netball games and their trainings and swimming, and he loved it. He was like, oh, this is a great life, Fia. I'm happy to do this. And I thought, okay, well, if you don't mind, I love seeing it. So just watching them grow and develop as father and daughters, I felt like that time was so precious, and none of us knew. You know, none of us knew that the very next year he would be gone. So as hard as it is to accept that he's no longer here, when I reflect back on that time, I think, wow, what a blessing. It felt like a blessing in disguise that they shared that entire year together, uninterrupted, and then the whole focus was on them. So he was a phenomenal dad, and people sometimes don't realise that, but he was.
He sounds incredibly present, and so cool that they got that time, and it's, yeah, all those moments. Because they were, I suppose their relationship was even more strengthened in that year. How was it then, you know, your girls were about 3 and 11, was it?
Yes.
So, I mean, they're such different ages. They're different personalities like you've described. How was then starting to walk out that grief process for them, being so different in ages and stages?
Yeah, it was tough. And I think because it's new for all of us, I had to really be in tune and provide a space where they could feel and express themselves however they wanted. And so that looked really different for a 3-year-old and then an 11-year-old. And so my eldest has the language, you know, to be able to share and talk. My youngest was learning how to speak, you know, still developing her motor skills. So I had to really pay attention to her cues, her non-verbal cues, and understand a little bit more about what she's trying to say in her way, because I'm convinced both of them were grieving. They were both mourning the loss, but it just looked completely different. I'll never forget the first night we returned home without Efeso, and we slept in our apartment together. And that morning, I woke up and I could hear her little steps coming down the hallway. And she just stood at the corner of the bed and stared at the empty space beside me. And then she just looked at me and she said, oh, and just sighed. And then she crawled into the bed quietly and she just lay on his pillow. And I was facing her crying, but I was trying to do it quietly. And she said, morning, Mum. And I said, morning, how are you, hun? And she didn't respond. And then she said to me, oh, fair daddy. Samoan for, where is dad? And before I could answer, she just looked up at the ceiling and then she said, Olai otoma Yesu. Mum. Which means he's sleeping with Jesus, Mum? And I just cried and I couldn't respond. And then she said to me, Mum, and I said, yeah. She goes, Fia ai wiki piki.
Hungry?
Which means I want to eat Weet-Bix.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, the moment's gone. It's but it shows that she feels it just as intensely as I do, as Gabriela does. But they have their moments and their own way of communicating. And for me, I really have to tell myself, like, concentrate, don't miss these moments and make sure you're present for her so that she feels safe enough to just engage and share about these things. And I'll be honest, it's hard. Her language is a little bit blunt. So she'll say, oh, Mum, like randomly out of the blue, she'll say, oh, Mum, so Daddy died, eh? And like for me, the whole world stopped. Like, oh my gosh, okay, whatever I'm doing, I better put that stuff down and just sit there and concentrate. And I look over at her and she said it quite casually. And, I think there's a memory that's been triggered in her mind. And then I'll turn and I'll stop and I'll look at her and I'll say, oh, yes, hun, Daddy did pass away. And then she'll say, pass away? Okay, I said Daddy died. And, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like this is just so hard.
Yeah.
Hard for me to say the D word. I can't say it out loud. And so for me, I understand she's younger. She's going through the motions in her own way, at her own time, in her own stage and phase. And I accept and I understand it. For my eldest, she's got so many memories of her father. And so she doesn't travel as much anymore. She's travelled the world with us. And because of that, 7-8 year gap, it was just her for a long time. So we went everywhere and we took her with us. And so for her, travelling is something that really triggers her grief. And so she said to me, I don't really want to travel that much anymore. And when I do like work trips to Wellington, I used to take my kids with me. And so recently there was a trip to Parliament for Efeso to honour him, and I took my youngest, but I didn't take my eldest. And I think for me, again, it's about listening and really taking into account what they say and valuing their voice, however young they are, so that they feel that, man, Mum sees me and Mum hears me and Mum's gonna try her best to facilitate a space so that I can just be. And if I'm angry or if I'm upset or if I'm mad or I'm crying or sad, that I'm allowed to be that. And so that's something that I really try hard. I'm quite determined to create for my children. And I think the thing with my eldest too is because she has so many memories, it's hard for her to speak about it. So I've tried to ensure that she's got a good support system. So obviously she's got me and she's got my siblings, her aunties and uncles who love her, spoil her rotten. But I also am quite deliberate about making sure that her peers are involved. So her friendship circles, I reach out to them and then they'll come over and I'll lock myself in the room and I don't care what they do for the next 4 hours, but they can just do whatever. And I think that having those spaces, or going to a playground and I'll just be around so that, you know, they're not on their own. But I just make sure that, you know, she has her own space to vent and say, you got to be careful what you say around mum or the adults. And I think I'm keen to make sure that there are spaces for her where she can just express herself and be herself in her truest form in whatever language, and that mum's not there to, be like, oh, no, you're not allowed to say that, that she can just say it and get it off her chest.
Yeah.
So.
I love how you're doing this, Fia, and I think the real tuning in to your children and where they're at is just so healing, and confronting with children too, because the 3-year-old often they say things that are deep and catch you, and then they want to know what's for dinner.
Yeah.
It's sort of all in the same breath, and that in itself is sort of like, it takes an adjustment, but is good for us as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you about the way you were parented. You know, we parent out of our own family and the family of origin that we have, and we stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. So how has that impacted your parenting?
Oh, enormously. My beautiful mum, Asalemo Elika, she passed away 9 years ago. And my father is Lingoi or Peta Elika, and he's thankfully still around. He's 74. He's a champ and still very actively involved in our lives. And so, I absolutely want to pay homage to my parents. They came here in the thick of the 70s during the Dawn raids and migrated here. They were excited and happy to be here, but when they arrived, it turned into quite a scary time. They have vivid memories of flatting on Ponsonby Road and, along Karangahape, and I'm like, oh, well, we definitely don't flat there anymore. But they remember being there. My mother was a housemaid and a cleaner at the Sheraton Hotel on Simon Street, which is now the Quarters. And my father used to be a machine operator at the chocolate factory in Pa'anānā. And so, I think about their sacrifice and I think about their migration stories and what they left behind. They left their families, they left the language, the familiarity, culture, and even the social capitals and networks that they had. And they came here to try and learn their English, make a living and send money back home and to set up a family for themselves. So, they worked really hard. They were both factory workers and eventually saved enough money and bought a house in the mighty West Auckland. I married somebody out south and I get a lot of heat for moving out those ways. But, I'm a Westie through and through, born and raised there for 30 years before I moved out. And in Rānui, and we loved our upbringing. We didn't have a lot of material things or material wealth, but my parents made sure we had everything we needed. We didn't grow up with devices. We had each other. There's 4 of us. I've got 2 older siblings and 1 younger brother, and we had each other. And my parents instilled in us values around the church, faith, culture, family, and that was really important, and something that I carry even now. One story I did want to share, if it's okay, about my mum. My mother was diagnosed with bowel cancer and received treatment, radiation, chemo, all of that. And it got to a point where the oncologist said, look, it's terminal and there's really not much we can do anymore. So obviously everybody was devastated and sad. And then we went home and I remember the phone, our landline, before we had devices, the phone rang and picked up the phone and it was Mum. And my mother said to me, Fia, I need you and Efeso to come over I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh, sounds serious. She said, yeah, it is. Come when you're ready and when you're free. And my daughter was 3 at the time. And my daughter was raised by my parents, which means she spent more time with them than she did with Efeso and I. So Kapiriela was raised by my mum and my dad in Ranui. And so whenever my parents said to us, go and chase your dreams and leave your daughter to me and I will raise her. But you and Efeso, this is your time. Work, serve the community, whatever dreams you have, go out and chase them. So we felt so empowered and free to go out and do our thing. And so what it meant though was when my daughter came home to us, she would cry in the middle of the night for my mum. And this would be at midnight, 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and she would just wake up and be like, oh, who are you two? And, be like, where's mum? Where's Nana? And so we would at any hour of the day or night go back, and my mother would be standing at the door with her hands on her hips looking at us like, yeah, why did you take my baby in the first place? And so we would go drop her off, and then, my poor dad got demoted to the living room. So back to the cancer story, my mum called us to come. We came in and my mum said, oh, sit down. I want to tell you about something called ma'i manatu. And I was like, oh, what's that? And ma'i means sickness and manatu means to want or yearn for something. She said, this sickness, it's rife back home in Samoa with kids who lose their grandparents suddenly. And this sickness doesn't have a cure. And she said, these children are devastated that their grandparents suddenly overnight are gone. And they either are psychologically kind of not the same or damaged in some way. They're lonely or sad. They cry often. Their mental health is affected. And then she said, worst case scenario, they die. And she said, they die from a broken heart. And she said to Feso and I, we were crying because then we realised where she was going with this. And she said, Feso, you can do this. When she cries for me at night, keep her there. I don't want my baby, after I'm gone, to suffer and worry about me. So you now need to step it up. And the reason why she directed her kind of talanoa to Efeso was because I was now living at Ranui as her primary caregiver. So I was with her right throughout her cancer and just caring for her, looking after her. So then Feso was now at our home, and then he was raising Kapiriela. And so when she cried at night, and that was often for my mum, he was now trying to keep her close to him and trying to almost wean her off my mother and bring her back into our home and be raised by him. So when I think about that, when you receive news about cancer, I think you're thinking about yourself and the end and, what's going to happen to you and the pain you're in. And my mum was thinking about my daughter. And I thought about that selflessness and that legacy of service and love. And so when I get complimented on, oh, Fia, you're this and you're that, I always think, yeah, I don't have a choice because I was powered by a woman who loved me first and loved my daughter and modelled that kind of care and love and selflessness right up until she had passed away. So I love my father too, but I wanted to share that story about my mum.
Thank you.
That's very special. I'd love to know, I'd always love a story of a coming together, but when you first met Efeso, what attracted you to him? I'd love to know that and how you guys met. And then also, I'd love to know a bit more too about what your home life, you two and your 2 girls, was like.
Yeah, I mean, Feso and I met at university. And we had a similar passion for young people, for our Pacific communities, but also for mentoring programs, and we shared the same faith. And so we started off as friends. And there's like, if he was here, because I always say, yeah, there was like a 10-year gap between us, age difference. And he's always like, Fia, it was 8 years and 11 months.
Oh, yeah.
But and so I think because of that age difference, we could just let our hair down. There wasn't any flirting or any like, I'm trying to be interested in him or vice versa. We were friends and we loved being in each other's company. And he founded the Dream Whānau mentoring program at the University of Auckland, and I was a part of that. And I loved it. It was really just to try and encourage Pacific learners to look beyond high school and to aspire for more, to look at tertiary studies or the trades, whatever it might be. But it was called Dream Whānau because we're trying to encourage our kids to dream.
Yeah.
Dream big. So we had similar passions, and I think while we were working closely together, we fell in love. We fell in love, and it was hard at first because, I was a little confused. It's the first time I had been with anybody, and so I was like, oh, is this what it feels like? And so it was cool. In the end, it was beautiful, and I feel so honoured that I got a front row seat to seeing him parent. And, we had a family together, and I'll always cherish that. So in our home, he's the fun parent. Like, he was so silly and loud. We could hear his laugh a mile away. But he did the small things really, really well. He listened to the girls. He was interested in their day. He played with them. He'd get down. He's not little. He was 6'4", but you saw this giant crawling on the ground and playing the games and playing Connect Four, playing Monopoly, chasing them outside. It was too hot. Right, we're going for a swim. And I was like, yes, thank you, because I do not want to do those things. And so we were such a perfectly matched team, in that we knew our strengths and weaknesses, and we were able to communicate it openly and honestly. Because you kind of have a bit of guilt, like, oh, I feel bad that I don't like those things. And then, I was able to share it. And then he was able to say, well, I actually really like that stuff, so I'll do it. And I thought, oh, yes, okay, great. And vice versa. So he didn't like planning parties. He didn't enjoy that. And I was like, oh, I love doing that stuff. So give it to me and I'll coordinate and plan stuff. So I felt like a lot of our skills complemented one another. But he was so silly. And when Feso did his maiden speech, he obviously talked about a range of different topics and things. But right at the end, I don't know if you remember, but right at the end, he turned to our daughters and he said, hey, I'm going to be your Valentine for life, and you're not allowed to get married till you're 50. And so, everyone kind of cracked up and laughed. But afterwards, everyone was talking about, different things in the speech that they loved. Oh, that thing about the climate, or that thing about this. And that was cool. When we got back home to the hotel and we sat down, we usually debrief these things. And he'd be like, hey, what did you think? But the one thing that Efeso wanted to talk about that night after his maiden speech, he turned to me and he goes, so tell me, what was Kapirila's face like when I said what I said? And, I was in fits, and I said, oh my gosh, after you said it, she just shrunk in her seat and looked at me like, Mom. And then he made me, for the next 30 minutes, reenact it over and over again because he couldn't stop laughing. We were in a hotel room, and so there were different rooms. So my dad was there, my nephew was there, the girls were there, and we were in our room. And that's what we stayed up all night laughing about, was her reaction. He goes, do it again, show me again. And I was like, oh my gosh. So you said it, and then she went, oh, and he goes, ah, and he's just like cracking up on the bed. So, it's just to give you a glimpse of the things that really mattered to him. And that's not to say that other parts of his speech weren't important. Obviously, it took a lot of time and effort to craft that speech and put it together. But the one thing that he wanted to talk about at the end was her reaction.
That speech was amazing, and I watched it just last week, preparing for our time together today. And it was beautiful, and he just, I think, it was only a week later. It was within a week that he passed.
Yeah.
And I think to have that platform, to be able to talk about his dreams and his vision and his hope for New Zealand and for the Pacific community, and then the only time his voice wobbled and he got emotional was when he thanked you guys, and you could just feel the love and adoration for you and for his girls. So yeah, if you've not watched that speech, it is powerful. Yeah.
Fia, it's so clear that Efeso's presence fills your home and your heart. How do you take the memory and weave it into the memories and weave it into your family life?
If I'm honest, I struggle. I struggle because I think the way grief hits me is through his voice, seeing his face, any videos of him. And at the same time, I'm aware that my daughter, the youngest one in particular, wasn't raised with the same memories that maybe her sister has. And so it pains me because I don't like watching clips of him, and I don't like listening. It just makes me really, really sad. But at the same time, I keep thinking about keeping his memory alive, and especially for the girls. And so I've got to try and muster the courage to keep showing them clips and hearing his voice and letting them see all of that content and material. So it is really hard for me, but I try my best to make sure that they have access to it. And on my device I've got lots of like personal home videos of him, and I haven't been able to watch them, but what I'll do is I'll hand it to her when she asks me for it, and then I'll try to stay as long as I can, and then I'll just kind of pop out and check back in again. So I think the beauty of maybe being a public figure with Efeso was that there was so much content and material out there that I'm not worried that there isn't stuff that she can access when she's older. But I think the here and now is still just as important. And so I just want to support her by making sure that she can access things, even though I know it's hard for me. And my daughter, my eldest, I know that she's a little bit like me, where we don't really watch TV anymore. That was something we did with him. And so our television has been off for a year and a half since he's passed. And so, again, we feel sorry for the youngest. She's like, I don't want to just look at you two. Like, can we watch something? And so we're just trying to find that balance in our home so that my eldest is protected, that I still have, my wairua intact, and then at the same time we're doing all we can to speak lovingly of Efeso in our home, so that our young one can see him, hear him, and never forget.
What do they think of the big, beautiful... I live in South Auckland.
Yes.
And my kids are like, take us to the 3-layer playground. It's that big playground there.
Yes.
And as you drive up and you go to park, there is Efeso. And how many stories are that? It's huge.
It's like 8 stories.
Yeah. And it's like, what a beautiful mural, and a perfect where it is, like even when we're on the skate park and stuff, I can still see a little bit of it. What did they think when they saw that?
They absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And for my youngest in particular, she likes to visit the mural probably more than the cemetery, the gravesite. So with my eldest, she probably prefers the gravesite, and there are times where we'll go there and she'll just sit on the grass and she'll have conversations with her dad, and sometimes she wants to be alone, so we just let her be. But my youngest always wants to see him in the mural, and it's hard for my eldest and I, Gabrielle and I, we kind of like try real hard because that's what she wants. She's for Father's Day or for his birthday, can we go see Dad? And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. And we go often, but when it's like Father's Day and his birthday, she wants to have a full-on conversation, and she'll show him the card that she's made, and she talks to him. It's like, hi Daddy, do you like my card? So I wrote in it and I drew a picture of a rainbow, and she just talks and Ella and I are standing there trying real hard not to cry and to keep it together because
Yeah.
it's so innocent and pure and
Yeah.
beautiful. But it's heartbreaking, eh? So I think for us, we love that mural and we're grateful to the amazing Māori artists, the Williams family, for doing that for us and for our people in our community. So really
so
special.
Beautiful, so beautiful. You talked about the different projects and things that you've done together. I'm curious, is there anything that you guys talked about, any dreams that you were planning on that you're still holding, that you feel like you need to walk out for both of you?
Yeah, Efeso was passionate about advocacy and obviously people have lasting memories of him in his most recent role as a politician. One of the things that we talked about a lot was how we can get greater representation in those spaces, in government, in politics, in parliament. And so we had always talked about one day, having our kids, our nieces, our nephews, our friends' kids, all workshop, kind of come together and to mentor them around governance and what that looks like, and not believing that you have to wait till you've done X amount of experience at a workplace and that you're 30 plus and then you're ready for it. And so we were adamant that young people need to be given the space to dream and also make mistakes and stuff up, but to learn about these scary spaces that often they'd look at it and go, oh no, that's for you guys. And we were like, no, we got to open these doors and let them in, let our young people in. So it's one of the things that I've been thinking about, and one day I hope to start a foundation in Efeso's name, and it is to mentor young people into leadership and to encourage them. It might not be politics, that's one area. It could be anything, but to encourage people to really consider governance, consider leadership, develop their communication skills, and just believe. It's one of the things that I think about for me when I have a background in teaching, and then I went into starting my own business. And I never, ever could have done it had I not had a man who looked at me and believed in me. And, I thought, who on earth is going to want to hire me? Like, they're probably, oh, no, next. And, he always thought, no, you can do it. So I know what kind of profound impact it's had on me. And I'm hoping that with whatever platform I might have, if I can share that with our young people to say, you know what, you can do it too. I would love to be in a position to do that. So Fesso's gone, but that's one part of his legacy I absolutely am committed to and want to keep alive. So.
Efeso passed away in February, we're coming up almost 2 years. And my dad passed away in February, coming up 5 years now. And when I lost my dad, I had a yearning, all of a sudden, never had it before, but to know the language. It was something that I know through growing up at school and stuff. My dad had almost lost the value, saw how precious it was. And so also watching Efeso, he talked about his journey with the language and just wanting to learn and to grow that. And I loved in his maiden speech, he used a Samoan saying, and I'm going to try to step into it now. And he said, "E le toa whaamonga se tangata." Is that sort of?
Yes.
No one stands alone, no one succeeds alone, and no one suffers alone. And it feels like that saying captures so much of your journey. Who or what has held you through the hardest moments of this journey right now?
Honestly, it's been my family and my friends. And I call them friends, but they're really family. They're not blood relatives, but they've been there for me. So I've got a younger brother named Becca, and Becca lives in the same apartment complex as us. And he has always been a pillar of strength for us, even when Efeso was alive. So he and I would go out to work and we might not be able to get the morning routine sorted for the girls. And because he was just literally a minute walk away, he would be like, no, that's fine, I'm happy to come. So the morning that Efeso passed, he was there. Because both Efeso and I needed to go to work, and my brother had come in to make sure that the girls were sorted, had breakfast, the uniforms, and got out the gate, and he took them to school. So to this day, that brother of mine has been an absolute rock for me. And then I've got my 2 older siblings and their spouses and their children. So there's 10 of them, and they're all around the same ages as my girls. And that has been phenomenal. Like for me, I do feel a sense of loneliness because I miss Efeso deeply, but I can't say that I've parented on my own. It sounds weird because I'm a widow now, and I think there's that natural association that you are a solo parent, but I can hand on heart say that there has been an army of support and a village that has really held us up. And so the fact that I'm here today is a testament to their love and their support, their prayers, and the way they show up for me. And I actually struggle to ask for help. So I won't say, hey, I'm having a bad day, or I'm crying and I'm really upset. And so my friends and my family just know. And they've known me for so many years that they will just show up. Or I'll get home and there's a package there. My brother has cooked breakfast. We'll wake up in the morning, we can smell something delicious, and my kids know. They're like, oh, Mummy definitely didn't cook that. And I'm like, yeah, as long as you know. So, there are things like that, small acts of kindness, which aren't small at all. They're significant, and they just lift our spirit and my spirit. So for me, I think there's a Māori whakatauki, ka mua ka muri, and it means you walk backwards into the future.
Yeah.
And I think as a Samoan, I think about the wā, which is that sacred relational space between others, between people, between the land and between God. And when I think about my world, there's a real holistic approach to it, where I'm weary of my ancestors and now Efeso and my mother who have passed on, but I'm making decisions in the present that I hope will impact my children and future generations in a really positive way. And so I know that it's a interesting way to move in the world, but that's, for me, wā is everything. It's about the wairua, it's about my children, it's about the past, but it's also linking it to the future. So, yeah.
And with that and the dreams that you have, what are you dreaming for your girls? What are you hopeful for their future?
I hope that they just don't let this hold them back. And from what I can see, I think they're taking the hurt and the pain and they're turning it into something beautiful. And I just hope for me that they continue to grow, and that they're not afraid to step into spaces, and that they're not afraid to dream. It's one of the biggest things with Efeso. He was always encouraging young people to dream big and don't let anybody limit you or tell you can't do something. So my heart is for them to grow in their faith and to always have a heart of service and humility for those around them. That it's not just about themselves, that this is about more than them. The people in the past and the people that are yet to come. So I want them to move in that same sort of space where they're free to dream, and that they accept that times are going to be hard, they're going to feel scared, but that they're going to step into it anyway and know that they step in with all the love around them.
Fia, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, your wisdom. I get them. I tried to keep it in the whole time, and now I feel so emotional. But just thank you so much for your time and coming and sharing. It's been just such a gift to us and to those listening and watching. And if you've been listening, if you've been watching, and you've things that you and your parenting, maybe you're going through grief, hard stuff, and you need someone to come alongside you, parentingplace.nz is where you will find us if we can help in any way in your parenting journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.